Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Monday's, Memorial Day's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first here, hazardous weather graphic. Wind advisory remains out for the passes of the eastern Alaska range here. Same as yesterday. That's due to end, I believe, at 7 p.m. tonight, this evening, just a few more hours. And up until then, could see possibly winds gusting as high as 50 miles per hour. And also, there's a red flag warning for extreme fire danger in this same area due to those high winds and the dry conditions, low relative humidities. And that stays out until 10 p.m. this evening. And then after that, it should subside, probably drop into the high category. And moving on from there, river breakup map. Still have the flood advisory out. At this point, say it's out until further notice here for the area on down to the Koyukuk River on down to Hughes for high water levels, possible minor flooding, at least through tonight and through tomorrow at this point in time, due to snow melt and not an ice jam type thing or a heavy precipitation event. Just lost snow melting here in the warmer temperatures. Otherwise, looks like all the rivers are pretty much completely open here, except the no attack there, some ice on the upper stretch. Same thing here for the Colville and Sagwan, but basically breakup is over for this year. And from there, we'll look at the fire danger. And here along and north of the Alaska range, that's the high fire danger zone, and it's pretty solid northward there to the southern slopes of the eastern Brooks Range, across the upper Yukon Valley, Yukon Flats, Porcupine River. And that extends eastward as well into the Koyukuk area, and then kind of cuts off. They had some decent precipitation amounts today in some areas up through here, or in the last 24 hours anyway, up in that area. And also down here over south central Alaska, obviously, with the 3/4 of an inch of rain that fell at Anchorage, ending at midnight last night, which was a record for the date. And looking at satellite imagery, this is what's left of the system that brought all the rain to the area yesterday during the day. And still moisture flowing northward, but a lot lighter and more scattered precipitation amounts. And it seems to almost cut off there at the Alaska range, although there were some areas of precipitation had occurred actually earlier on, not so much today, up over the some areas north of the mountains there, but not a whole lot. Another zone of clouds right through here, and then we've got some moisture back to the west and northwest. And there were some anywhere from up to a half an inch of rain fell at several locations here over the northwest interior. And of course, other areas had much less than that. But a general area of rain today across the north slope and the Arctic coast. And there were some areas of light freezing rain. Temperatures obviously had to be below freezing or near freezing or just below there up in that area, and but nothing too serious. And then lots of low clouds, areas of fog, drizzle type conditions here in the Bering Sea. And we've got a weak system here spinning just south of the Pribilofs. That brought light amounts of rain and cloudy skies, areas of fog, lower flying conditions here over the southeast Bering from the Pribilofs on down toward the Alaska Peninsula area. And some showers around Kodiak as well, but no big organized storm systems on the chart at all, with this one weakening, kind of a center right through here, washing out over the Seward Peninsula, and really nothing too significant here over the Gulf of Alaska as well. On the chart, we can find a low easily here on the surface analysis. They're just west of Nikolsky, weak front, areas of light rain, fog, drizzle from eastern Aleutians, from about Atka over to the western Alaska Peninsula, and then on up to the Pribilofs, and it cuts off. Only light amounts up there, and some fog, drizzle out over the Shemya area, and actually that pattern kind of scattered across the entire Bering Sea, maybe to a greater extent here with this system here, and a little bit more moisture. But again, nothing too significant. This trough here, remnants of that front. And you can see just some scattered showers or areas of light rain and a narrow band along that. Otherwise, partly mostly sunny over the central southern southeast coast. And moisture up there over the north slope and Arctic coast, and then extending southward with that low. See for tonight, kind of stays parked up there, except the precipitation area not quite as extensive. Look forward to dry out end, and also the skies will tend to start clearing here, especially south of the Arctic coast. But you could possibly see some clearing up there in the east side for a change. Stays cloudy and damp back to the west. Pretty nice, benign, light winds, variably cloudy, central, southern interior. Generally cloudy Cook Inlet with the best chance of showers or light rain, fog, or drizzle occurring from Kamishak Bay down to Kodiak Island, across the Barrens. Southern Kenai Peninsula, just a weak southeast flow will continue to feed a little bit of moisture up into the western Prince William Sound area. Otherwise, just isolated showers now along the eastern North Gulf Coast, maybe up here over the northern Panhandle. And partly to mostly maybe cloudy type of conditions here for the southeast coast. Definitely dry, winds light, fog, low clouds right along the outer coastline there. And then this system south of the eastern Aleutians, close enough to feed moisture up and keep periods of rain, light rain, going with fog from the Alaska Peninsula. Again, on out, much like today, on out to about Atka. Weak trough keeps it kind of unsettled, cloudy, and drizzly over the southeast Bering. And then for tomorrow, again, no big storms out here over the Bering Sea. Just a really weak thing out there to the northwest, and a weak trough here over the eastern Aleutians. And then southeast flow around the main low center a little farther to the south. That keeps some clouds and moisture in over the Alaska Peninsula, the eastern Aleutians. Again, quite light, drizzle, fog, Adak, Atka, and same thing out towards Shimia. Interior, we've got showers along this trough here in the west. And then in the afternoon, showers will be developing with the afternoon heating. So you'll see more sunshine in the morning than you will in the afternoon. Isolated thunderstorms possible there over the upper Tanana Valley, 40-mile country, Tok north way up toward maybe Eagle. And isolated showers also in the afternoon over the Brooks Range. Kind of a foggy, drizzly day, maybe for Kodiak, possibly showers up to the Alaska Peninsula. Still a risk of showers over the northern Panhandle, but nothing heavy, and best chance of sunshine will be off to your south and southeast there toward Annette, Metlakatla. And for Wednesday, trough in the interior, look for temperatures warming to the 70s, and that'll trigger possibly some thunderstorm activity of a scattered, isolated nature with even less shower activity either side of that trough. High pressure, mostly dry and partly sunny for the southeast coast, partly sunny southern Alaska. Next system spreading rain up to Kodiak Island and the southern Kenai Peninsula, extending back toward the Fox Islands. And for lows tonight, 40s or lower 30s Arctic coast, 40s in the interior, and the Panhandle near 50. Highs for tomorrow, 70s northeast interior. Otherwise 60s cooling into the 50s back toward the coast, and then upper 30s over St. Lawrence Island. Near 40 for the coldest areas of the Arctic coast, in the 60s for the Panhandle, 50s Alaska Peninsula, and 58 to 63 south central Alaska. Lows following morning, 40s in the south, mid to upper 40s in the north, and the Arctic coast in the lower 30s, followed by highs, warmest in the interior of 68 to 75.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on to flying weather, IFR, Central Bering Sea, up through the strait, along, and just a short distance inland over the central eastern Beaufort Sea coast. VFR here, central eastern interior, marginal VFR, followed by some IFR along the North Gulf Coast here, Kenai Peninsula, east side of Kodiak Island, south side of the Alaska Peninsula, and off the southeast coast. Otherwise, VFR for the Panhandle, that'll continue, well, actually, it starts to fade away tomorrow. You get some marginal VFR creeping into the inside waters there. IFR right along the coast, IFR up to about Cape Yakataga, and marginal conditions into the coast range. And IFR, western Prince William Sound, down the Kenai Peninsula, east side of Kodiak, and south side of the Alaska Peninsula. VFR on the north side there. Good VFR, just about all of interior Alaska, with the IFR still out over the Bering Sea. And then for Tuesday morning, not much change here. We've got IFR from the west central Aleutians, again, right on up through the Bering Strait, catching Point Hope, Cape Lisburne, eastward, making landfall around Wainwright, and then over to maybe Prudhoe Bay or so, then marginal off to the east. Good VFR in the interior. And then some marginal VFR, western Cook Inlet, from Cook Inlet on up to over to the eastern slopes of the Alaska Range there. And marginal VFR now creeping in, trying to get into the Central Copper River Basin with IFR right along the coastline up and around to the Kenai Peninsula, still the east side of Kodiak, and staying south on the south coast of the Alaska Peninsula. And for Tuesday afternoon, good VFR in the interior. Notice that extends all the way up to the eastern Arctic coast there and beyond, and also back to off the southwest coast, Norton Sound, St. Lawrence Island now, marginal VFR. Still a big area IFR out over the central Bering down to the AKwx area over to Unalaska Island, and IFR, Kamishak Bay and Fognak Island, east side of Kodiak, but a little farther to the south and staying offshore of the Panhandle. For passes tomorrow, Anatuvik probably be occasionally marginal at times, and Adigan will be VFR, going for VFR there. They're a little farther east away from the moisture field, so I'll say mostly VFR for Adigan. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, starting out marginal, becoming VFR tomorrow, slipping into the afternoon. Still be some clouds and showers around, but they'll be of the VFR variety. And for rainy, same trend, marginal to start, trending toward VFR throughout the day, windy VFR all day long. Same thing for Isabel, VFR, Mentasta, Tanita, good VFR, Portage, marginal becoming VFR. And for Chilkoot and White, occasionally marginal at times throughout most of the day on Tuesday. And for the freezing levels, across southeast coast, looking at 6,000 to 10,000 feet here. Upper level ridge kind of shifting off to the east a little bit there, so now we have the jet coming up across the southeast coast tomorrow where the thermal gradient is, and then kind of spread out here 4,000 to 6,000 feet across interior Alaska, warmest over the northeast, and about 4,000 feet sums it up for the Bering Sea here in the Aleutians, 6,000 feet just off to the west. Icing, really nothing too significant. The best chance that you'd run into it would be here in the west from the north or western Alaska here, and maybe southern Kenai Peninsula and Cook Inlet, possibly around Kodiak, maybe the eastern Aleutians above about 7,000 feet. Really not much of a chance, but the threat does exist. It's probably something of an over forecast. And for the jet stream here, upper level low there, another one just south of the eastern Aleutians, so we've got northwesterly sailing southeast, 110 knots, just clipping the western Aleutians way down to the south, coming back up to the north here, but farther to the east with a ridge pulling off to the east a little bit, so 70 knots into the Panhandle. 9,000 foot wind flow chart showing high pressure at this elevation over the eastern interior there, or close to 40-mile country, and pretty light winds under that, and then southwest 15 to 20 here in advance of that low just off the northwest coast. And east-southeast, a little gusty, a little brisk, maybe up to 35 knots across the Alaska Peninsula. And from 3,000 feet, could see southeasterlies at about 30. Pretty light over the interior, 20 up over the northwest, southeast coast, 5 to 15. Basically from the southwest or west. And turbulence-wise, looking like this, pretty smooth for the Panhandle, Gulf of Alaska, all interior Alaska looking good turbulence-wise. And maybe some occasional moderate chop here on the lee side of the Alaska Peninsula of the mechanical variety there with the stronger winds, light to isolated for Adak and Atka. And after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
It can be many miles long, from 1 to 100 feet high, traveling at 400 miles per hour. This ocean monster is known as a tsunami, and it can wreak havoc on coastal populations and landscapes. A tsunami is a series of ocean waves caused by any large and sudden disturbance of the sea surface. Tsunamis can be generated by landslides, volcanic eruptions, or even meteorite impacts in the ocean, but they are most often caused by an earthquake where there's a sudden displacement of the ocean floor. When that happens, there's a transfer of energy from the sea floor to the ocean, causing waves on the surface to radiate outward in all directions. In deep waters, these waves may not even be detectable. But when the tsunami enters shallower waters, the wave speed slows and its height increases. The water along the coast may recede noticeably. A large wall of turbulent water, called a bore, may also form. When the tsunami hits, it may come ashore like a fast-rising flood and strike with devastating force. The The series of waves may continue for hours. The first one may not be the last or the largest. For your safety, know the potential warning signs of an incoming tsunami. A strong earthquake that causes difficulty standing. A rapid rise or fall of the water along the coast. A loud ocean roar. When you're in a coastal area, it's important to keep alert for messages from local officials, such as lifeguards, police, the U.S. Tsunami Warning Centers, and NOAA All Hazards Radio. If you find yourself in a location of a tsunami strike, here's what you need to do to stay safe. Keep calm. Walk or run to higher ground, 100 feet above sea level or 1 mile inland. Do not drive. Keep roads open for emergency vehicles. If you cannot move to higher ground, use the stairs to get to the 3rd floor or higher in a sturdy building. Follow all instructions from local officials and stay out of coastal areas until authorities issue an all clear. Tsunamis can strike any coastline in the world and can affect locations thousands of miles away from where they formed. They may be uncommon, but the devastation they cause makes them a deadly force in nature. For more information on tsunamis, go to the following sites.
Tsunami, a killer wave, speeding across the ocean at 400 miles an hour. It smashes into land, destroying everything in its path. Tsunamis do not have a season, but they can strike any coast at any time. If one forms close to the shore, the shaking of the earth and a loud roar may warn of its approach. But when a tsunami forms across the ocean, it can take hours to reach the shore, enough time to warn people to move to higher land. Over the past 20 years, NOAA has developed DART, a real-time monitoring system that provides data for forecasting tsunamis. The DART systems have been deployed in earthquake-prone areas throughout the ocean, including the Pacific and Indian basins. A DART system combines a surface buoy and a sensor on the ocean floor. This sensor detects changes in water pressure and seismic activity and transmits the data back to the surface. If these changes indicate a tsunami may form, the buoy signals an alert via satellite to the tsunami warning centers in Alaska and Hawaii. Back at the centers, scientists plug the data into pre-existing models. These models predict the height, the arrival time, and the coastal locations that the tsunami will hit. Watches and warnings are issued to the affected communities so preparations can begin. Today, 47 DART stations are positioned all around the world, ready to detect and warn coastal communities about the next potential tsunami. With the DART system and tsunami warning centers in place, we are now better prepared to predict a killer wave before it strikes.
December 26, 2004. What began as an undersea earthquake in the Indian Ocean ended as the most deadly tsunami in recorded history, with nearly 240,000 lives lost. This was a devastating wake-up call to coastal communities and tsunami research. Prior to this event, only 6 of NOAA's Deep Ocean Assessment and Reporting of Tsunami, or DART, buoys were in place. Scientists could only predict tsunami arrival times, not flood potential. And there was not a global tsunami warning system. Today, 10 years later, we can tell a different story. U.S. and international coastlines are far better prepared for such a catastrophe, thanks in large part to research and technology developed at the NOAA Center for Tsunami Research at Pacific Marine Environmental Laboratory. NOAA's DART array is now complete, with 39 buoys operated by the National Weather Service's National Data Buoy Center. Along with 21 international buoys, this array can measure a tsunami wave as small as 1 centimeter in the open ocean and provide these data in real time to forecast when a tsunami may hit the coast and how much flooding there will be. NOAA scientists and engineers are currently testing the 4th-generation DART buoy that will be able to measure local tsunamis as well as distant ones. Flooding forecast models incorporate local topography and historical tsunami data in order to more accurately predict exactly how a tsunami might behave when it reaches shore. NOAA has 75 site-specific models that can provide high-resolution flooding forecasts for effective response and mitigation during a tsunami event. NOAA has gathered data from every tsunami since 2004 to improve its forecast models. Today, it operates the world's only real-time tsunami flooding forecast system using DART data to accurately compute flooding forecasts. The NOAA Tsunami Warning Centers make tsunami data available on the internet and issue advisories, watches, and warnings through the Emergency Alert System and via NOAA weather radios. While it is impossible to prevent a tsunami, we are now much better prepared to detect them and predict their paths and impacts, so those in coastal communities can take the steps necessary to safely protect themselves.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Sea ice analysis for today continuing to slowly melt here. Definitely north of Bering Strait, nothing to the south for the last several days, and slowly melting here off the west side of the Arctic coast there. And that trend will continue for the next 5 days. For the southeast coast, pretty light and kind of variable winds here on the north coast, 10 knots, seas at about 6 feet. South coast, west-northwest 10 to 15, northwest 10 for Clarence Strait, south 10 for Stevens Passage, and then in the afternoon looking at 20 knots southerlies for Lynn Canal. And those will be about 15 knots the following day on Wednesday there, light southwest breeze for Stevens Passage, west at 10 for the southern inside waters, south coast northwest 15 knots, seas 6 feet, and west to south winds on the north coast at roughly 5 feet. And for Prince William Sound, light winds, slight seas tomorrow. Light winds also for the eastern North Gulf Coast. East 15 for the west side here. Southeast 20 for the Barren Islands. Turn east to 20 into Kamishak Bay. Cook Inlet, light night. Well, the winds will be light at night and also northerly at 10 during the daytime tomorrow with seas at 2 feet. And then northeast 15 for Wednesday, a little bit of an increase. Big increase here for Kamishak Bay. Easterly 35 knots. That means gale warnings with 10-foot seas. Small craft advisories. East 30 for the Barrens. East 25 for the western North Gulf Coast. Winds coming up, becoming southeast at 20 for the eastern zone there. And Prince William Sound, not much change, but noticing a more predominantly easterly direction in the afternoon at about 10 knots. And for Kodiak Island, east-southeast at 15 tomorrow. And from Sitkinak all the way down to Cape Sarachev here, south side of the peninsula, east winds 25 knots with seas 6 to 8 feet. North side, we've got small craft advisories as well there with 25 knot winds, but seas only 4 feet. East 20, seas 3 feet for Bristol Bay. And then for Wednesday, significant increase there for Bristol Bay, well, up to at least the high-end small craft advisory levels, northeast 30. And that extends all the way down to Cape Sarachev, and then south of southern peninsula here, small craft advisories right up and including Kodiak. Out of the east, 25 knots for the peninsula, Castle Cape to Sitkinak, 30 knots, and actually that extends right up the east side of Kodiak. Gales for Shelikof Strait, northeast 35. Fox Islands tomorrow, northeast 20-25 knots with seas running 4 to 7 feet. Central Aleutians, northerlies 20 to 25. Western zones out there, northwest to 20. And north 20 the next day for the western into the central Aleutians, but from areas roughly near Adak east, definitely for Atka, north 25 with seas at 6 to 8 feet. And small craft advisories also for the Fox Islands now, north to northeast, 25 knots, and those seas running 7 to 8 feet. Southwest coast, east winds on the light side north of Nunivak Island, but 20 knots there blowing out of Kuskokwim Bay. Northeast at 10 for the Pribilofs, 15 St. Matthew Island, and southerlies at 10 knots, St. Lawrence Island and Norton Sound. And then the next day, that swings around, north 10 for the Sound there, northeast 20 St. Lawrence Island, north 15 north side of, or along the Yukon Delta coast, and coming out of Kuskokwim Bay here, northeasterlies at 30, diminished to 20 across the Pribilofs. And for the St. Matthew Island zone, north winds 20 knots, seas 4 feet. And for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, 20 knot winds from the east tomorrow, seas in open areas 4 feet, and 25 knots, brisk wind advisory for the central coast, and southeast 20 here on the west side, swinging around to west from, say, Cape Lisburne to Point Hope, and then light southwest there from Cape Thompson on down to Wales. And the outlook for Wednesday, west at 15 there, heading to the east for the Chukchi, but southwest 20 knots, Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort, western Arctic coast south 20, and maintaining the easterly winds. In fact, we're bringing it back up to small craft advisories and brisk wind advisories on the east side as those winds come up to 25 knots. And for tonight, not too bad. Showers ending and skies starting to clear, but still a lot of variable clouds around, especially over southern Alaska. And then you get some moisture here, Kodiak Island, southern Kenai Peninsula. Isolated showers north Gulf Coast, maybe the Panhandle, otherwise dry with light winds. This system brings rain, fog, and drizzle from Atka and continues it over the Alaska Peninsula tonight and tomorrow. Weekends, but southeast flow here keeps it damp over the eastern Aleutians and locally over the Alaska Peninsula. Some sunshine breaking out in the southwestern coast, locally the interior. Showers with this trough. Afternoon showers, isolated thunderstorms, mainly over the mountainous terrain of the eastern interior, and partly sunny over the southern Panhandle. Wednesday, looking really good here for the southeast coast as well as the north Gulf Coast, southern Alaska, partly sunny. Isolated thunderstorms developing along that thermal trough in the central interior. Thank you so much for joining us.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.